Howdy, everyone, and welcome to a very special bonus episode of the D6 generation. We're very excited to bring to you our interview with Mack Martin that we got on site at Adepticon last month. Craig and I got a chance to sit down with Mack, and Mack is the co-designer of Dust Warfare, so we'll give you some insights into what they were thinking when they built it and what their plans are going forward. It's a great interview. Hope you'll stay tuned and listen to that. Up first, though, we wanted to make a couple of quick, exciting announcements. We have some exciting new technology and some changes to our service that we're very excited to talk about here real quick. First of all, we now have a brand new free D6 generation apps for both your iOS phones and your Android devices, iOS and Android. What I like about these apps and what we're really excited about, they're free. So this is something that all of our listeners can take advantage of, whether or not you subscribe to the Lost Chapters. I love them. You just go to the App Store or go to the Amazon Android App Store if you want to get an app there, or go to the iTunes App Store and grab a copy of this app. Quick and easy to download. It's a great way to enjoy the show. You don't know anything about RSS feeds. I mean, I get a lot of emails about how do I get the show on iTunes? How do I find your show? Don't talk about any of that. Just go get the app ready to go. Also, one of the motivations for this is we ran into a problem. We use FeedBurner to collate and bring our RSS feed out. And it turns out that FeedBurner has a limit, 512 kilobyte limit. And our show has such robust show notes that we're on episode 100, we hit this. And so we've had to actually start removing older episodes from the main feed. So you'll notice if you go into the iTunes feed now, we only go back to like episode 10 or 11 or 12. And as we put new episodes out, we'll have to remove those episodes, which is unfortunate. Good news, the apps don't have that problem. So a great way to give you guys every single episode in our catalog all the time. Use one of these apps. They're always there. Show notes are presented in the apps. Much easier to read. You can actually read the show notes, understand them, quickly scroll down and see the offsets to fast forward to sections of the show if you want to jump ahead to a particular segment. Not a problem. It's very easy to do in the app, and it's easy to see those points in the show notes. There's some great extras we can include in the app now, too. All the links are brought out and highlighted. There's a little E in the corner you can push for extras. Shows you all the links. We can attach extended audio now to certain episodes. We can attach pictures. If you go look at the Dust Warfare review episodes, if you hit the E there in the app, you'll see there's actually a photo in there now of one of Craig's pieces of terrain, and you can actually download it as wallpaper on your phone. Kind of cool. The contact info is easier. Sometimes people tell us, hey, I can't remember your email address. I can't remember how to contact you. If you have the app, it's right there. There's a contact button. All of our major contact information is there. Our voicemail line, our Twitter account, our Facebook, our main email, all of it's right there. Easy to remember how to get to. Other thing that's cool is the app lets you listen to episodes by streaming. So what's awesome about that is if you're on the road, you forgot to sync up with your computer, or if an episode drops in the middle of vacation, no problem. You can immediately start streaming and listening to it as soon as it drops. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's great, Russ, but what if I'm about to fly on an airplane and I can't stream? No problem. If you star any of your favorite episodes, the app will automatically download those onto your phone. And then if you flip your phone to airplane mode or whatever, you can still listen to the episodes, and they're downloaded locally. No problem. You have both choices. I love the streaming option. I do it all the time. I have several other podcasts have apps I use like this. I love it. It's a great way to keep up with your podcast. If they're going to drop in the middle of a trip or whatever, you can get those episodes. It's great. Also, in the iOS app, there's a cool search feature. Sometimes we get emails, people saying, hey, did you ever review Shadows over Camelot? Well, if you go in the iOS app and type in Shadows, click search, bam, you'll get it. Unfortunately, the search feature is not in the Android app yet. They're working on that, hopefully, so coming out soon. Also, one little note about the Android app, too. The Android app currently is only available in the Amazon App Store. It is free, though. That's the good news. The bad news is the Amazon App Store doesn't currently offer international downloads. So, boo-hiss. So right now, if you're international, we're really sorry about that. Libsyn, the company who's doing this for us, is working very hard to get that corrected. So hopefully, we don't have a time frame yet, but that's something that hopefully we'll be able to offer in the future. And last but not least in the apps, it's easy Lost Chapter integration. So the Lost Chapters now display in the app right alongside of the main episodes. If you're not a Lost Chapter subscriber, no big deal. There's a little lock there next to them. You just ignore them. And if you are a Lost Chapter subscriber, the lock will be gone. You can listen to them just like a regular episode. So again, no worry about getting a second feed and somehow subscribing to it and learning the password to the feed. All that happens when you sign up for the Lost Chapters, if you like, you'll be getting an email, to password and username. You put it into the app, and boom, the app unlocks the access to all those things as well. So the app's a great way to listen to the show. We hope you'll give it a try and let us know what you think about the app. I think it's fantastic. It's the way I listen to the show now. And as I said, I have several other apps for other podcasts. And Libsyn is probably one of the premier, if not the premier, podcast hosts. And they're rolling this out this year. It's a new service. And a lot of great podcasts are using it. And we're really excited to be part of their initial rollout. Now, along with this app release, we're able to offer a change to the Lost Chapters. So originally, we were hosting the Lost Chapters in two ways. One of them, you could individually download each episode from a service called Payloads. You pay for each one, and they get it individually. That still exists. You can still go to Payloads. If you go to our website and click on the Lost Chapter stack of books there, you'll get right in, and it'll show you each episode and which ones you want to download. But also now, we also offered it through Podbean. And Podbean was a great way to get what they call a secure RSS feed, and you could put in your password there. But we were having some challenges with Podbean, unfortunately, the last few months. One of the problems was our listeners couldn't get a good, reliable way to update their account information, see when it was going to expire, because we just hit the 1 year mark of the launch of the Lost Chapters. And a lot of folks are emailing me saying, Russ, I don't know when my account's going to expire. I can't check the status of my account. Podbean was not being very responsive. We were having a lot of hard times getting through to them. And so it was a real challenge. And I just felt like we weren't providing the service, the level of service I really want to be able to provide to our listeners. Craig felt the same way. And the other problem is their monthly subscriptions are all done through PayPal, which I'm actually a fan of PayPal, but the problem with PayPal subscriptions is unless you cancel it yourself, it never gets canceled. I, as the receiver of your subscription, can't actually tell it to stop. You have to do it yourself. All kinds of challenges like that. Listeners were emailing all the time with challenges, and it was just becoming a giant pain in the neck. So when Libsyn's service came out, we got very excited about it. And so here's what we can offer now through the new Libsyn premium podcast service for the Lost Chapters, which we're offering now. So first of all, you just pick a duration you want to subscribe for. So you can subscribe for monthly. You can subscribe for different variations, like 6 months, a year. When do you save more money the more you go? If you go to my.libsyn.com, it'll show all the podcasts you subscribe to. So I know it seems like, well, we're just going to subscribe to you. That's fine. But there are a lot of other great premium podcasts on Libsyn as well. And if you're a big podcast fan and other premium content listener, the great part is they're all going to be together in one spot. So you can manage all your subscriptions in one place, which would be great. And even if you only subscribe to us, it's still nice to have a dashboard where you can go to see when your subscription expires. You can cancel it at any time. You can see when your credit card is billed, all that great stuff. But we didn't have that with the last service. And I really like that visibility for you. We're taking your money. You should be able to see where your money's going, when it's going to be charged to your account, and when you can cancel. That's all now gets nice visibility for you. Also, it doesn't use PayPal anymore, which is a pro for most people. A lot of people don't like PayPal. If you're a PayPal fan, it's no big deal. You can still use a regular credit card with it as well. It's not too hard. But if you are someone who prefers not to do it with PayPal, now you can go right to credit cards. We have a lot of folks that were talking about that before. So if you click our little episodes link at the top of our webpage at the d6generation.com, you'll see now that there's a sort of a new episodes list, and it lists all of our episodes together, whether it's a Lost Chapter or then a regular episode. There's a much better built-in player now, so you can listen right on the website. If you prefer to listen at your desktop, you can listen right there. And when you subscribe to the Lost Chapters, the player's right there as well. You can also download right from that page. Also, if you'd like to download directly and transfer to your favorite MP3 player, that's possible also. Our big excitement is that it also puts it right in the app for you. So if you are using one of our apps, the new Android or iPhone 3 app, free apps, works great there. You're right integrated. You don't have to think about, is it a Lost Chapters, regular show? They're all right there for you. Also, Libsyn offers 24/7 customer service, which is fantastic. So you can contact their main email address. We've already had some folks talk to them. They've gotten some good feedback on it. And so all that great stuff's there. The only downside really is that we did have to increase the price of Lost Chapters a little bit. All this great service and all this functionality does come at a little bit of a cost. So you'll notice a slight price increase. We did try to keep it fair. The annual subscription is still about the same. So if you go that route, you're not really paying any more as much as you were before. And what we had before was you pay for the backpack, right? The whole back catalog plus a year. Now, if you're any kind of subscriber, you get access to all the Lost Chapters. So now it's a little better deal, really. You always have all of them there on your phone. They're all organized for you. It's easy to get them as well. So if you wanted to have the full catalog, that's actually a better value. And going forward, it's a little more expensive, but we think you're still going to get great value with that free app, as well as the new things we can do, like offer you better content and integrated content and all kinds of other cool features coming forward. So hopefully we'll be able to make that worth your while. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll find it a much easier way to listen to the show. Oh, and a word about migration. So if you are an existing Lost Chapter subscriber and your subscription had not expired at the time of this transfer, then you should have already received an email from Libsyn explaining how you've got a new account, here's your new password, and keep on going, and your subscription is going to continue at your original rate you paid until your expiration date, and at that point, you'll have to re-up at the new rates. So great deal. If you're a recently new subscriber, you got a good deal on that. If you are a monthly subscriber and you paid from month to month, what you want to do is go to PayPal and cancel your monthly subscription. Unfortunately, I can't cancel your PayPal subscription. Only you can, the subscriber. And you'll definitely want to cancel that because you're going to keep paying to Podbean, and they're no longer going to have the Lost Chapters on there. So unless you stop it, it's going to keep paying. So stop that, and then go ahead and transfer over to, head on over to our website, click on the episode section, click on Premium, and you can sign up because you're paying month to month anyway, and just sign up for the new service that way. If you are, and that's pretty much it. I think if you're, so that should have all happened. You should have been migrated if you're an already Libsyn subscriber. If you did not get a migration email and you think you should have, email me at info@the d6generation.com, and we can take a look at your case. Maybe your account expired. Maybe you were lost in the shuffle. Just let me know. We'll look up your information. If when you send that email, if you can send your PayPal information with me, that would be fantastic. It's just, not that I don't believe you, it's just easier for me to look things up if I have that ID. If you don't, no big deal. We'll still work through it, but it's very helpful if you have that ID. So if you want more information on how all this works, just go to our website and click on the Lost Chapter stack of books on the right-hand side for all the information there. And we hope you'll check it out. Please let us know what you think. Try the apps out for us. And again, just send us some email to info@the d6generation.com with any of your questions, comments, or concerns. And now, on with our interview. We're here with Mack Martin at Adepticon 2012. Adepticon, right. Adepticon 2012. We're all tired. It's Sunday, third day of the con. We're like, poor Mack's been demoing for like 3 days straight.
Oh, my voice is killing me.
Right.
But it's worth it. It's been fantastic.
So you're demoing some of the new hotness from Fantasy Flight Dust Warfare. Just released the last couple of weeks, right?
We are debuting kind of at Adepticon. It came out Wednesday at your local game store, so they should have it or be able to get it for you.
Now, Dust Tactics existed a while. Now you guys have made Dust Warfare. So what was sort of the impetus? Why did you guys go ahead and make another rule set for the game?
Well, it's not really... Well, I guess it is another rule set. It's a second game to be played with the same miniatures. The Dust Tactics board game had been doing fantastically. People love it, and we've been getting great feedback from it, especially on the miniatures. Paula Parente and the guys at Dust Studios just put out some beautiful, beautiful kits, and they come assembled and primed. And we're just like, there's no reason there isn't a traditional war game for this as well. The board game community has kind of embraced it. Fans of miniatures games are enjoying the quick play and the ease of intro, and especially for your new players who don't play a lot of miniatures games, they're loving tactics. It's really working out. There's no reason though, with how good these kits are, how rich the world is, that we don't just make a miniatures game for it as well. Give people 2 games with 1 set of minis. There just was no reason not to.
Cool. Well, I'll be honest. We were that way. We were kind of like, the board game looked interesting. The models looked fantastic. Yeah. And when the idea of a full-on miniature war game got surfaced, we got very, very excited.
Very excited. When we did the demo with Ross at Gen Con, he was very ridiculously excited.
As he should have been.
And he was doing the whole Ross Watson excitement thing and got us really excited. And we were very excited, and then there was no word about it for a while. So it kind of faded away for a little bit up from our consciousness to the point where we did not take advantage of some awesome sales that we could have had right around Christmas time had we really been thinking straight. And then at PAX East, you brought the rulebook back, and we haven't looked back since. It's been an incredible journey.
And one of the things really exciting about this game, especially for veteran miniature war gamers who've been in the industry for a while, been gaming for a while, are some of the people involved with the game. So you were one of the co-designers, right? Who else was involved in the game?
Well, Andy Chambers developed the core game. He gave us this beautifully rich, textured miniatures game that is easy to understand. It's got a couple points of quirky complication that make it just feel a little more realistic, feel a little different than miniatures games I'm used to. And the more we played it, the more we tested, the more we adjusted here and there and kept going, the better it got. It was such a fantastic framework and such a fantastic rule set, and it seemed so perfect right from the beginning for real tournament play, to actually have a miniatures game designed for competitive play between 2 people who aren't being who wanted to have a really tight game where they wanted to, one of them would barely win. Not one of the most disappointing things for me is when I'm playing a miniatures game for a couple hours and I table my opponent or my opponent tables me. Neither of us really enjoy it as much, and the rule set was just, it was so great to play a game where at the very end it was like, oh, you barely got me, if only my guy had done it. And we were getting that every game.
Yeah,
and it was
awesome.
That's exactly what happened last night.
Exactly what happened last night.
Russ got crushed, and almost every unit in his army was wiped out. But because of his mission, at the very last minute, one hero with one wound left.
Action Jackson, baby. Saved the day.
Saved the day, and it was that exact thing where everybody was like, "Oh no, what's going to happen?" Oh,
but it doesn't feel random, right?
no, absolutely
because
not.
you're not rolling a bunch of dice for everything. The dice are used only to represent things that the miniatures are doing, right? You only roll die when a guy is shooting or trying to fix almost like a role playing game in that respect, and that's just used for the mechanics. All of the tactics are decision points.
Right.
There's no randomness to it, so you don't feel like you lost the game because of a die roll.
Yeah.
You lost the game because Action Jackson just so close.
Yeah.
There's so many great mechanics in there. That's one of the things. Like when you're thinking through, how can I possibly get my last hero with one wound left to the objective? Well, I need to suppress that unit there. I need to push that unit down there. And those options are all in the game. And it feels like there's really been a lot of thought. Clearly, obviously, a lot of thought into the nature of the rules, the clarity of the rules in the book. I mean, how much latitude did Fantasy Flight Games give you? Kind of give us the background. How did Fantasy Flight approach you guys, the design team, and say, make this miniature war game?
Well, I work for FFG, so I started off kind of as our producer on the project and getting things done. And we basically only had one mandate from the bosses. There was a lot they wanted to see. There was a lot they wanted to do. They wanted to make sure people really enjoyed the game. But the big mandate was make the best miniatures game you can. That they gave both Andy Chambers and myself kind of the space to really get into all the things we wanted to see, and we had to really think about it. We had to step back and start asking other gamers, talk to other gamers, watch people just play every game we could, just not even just ours, just watch what are people looking for, and it became this exercise in minimalism to discover what the core of the experience we all want from this hobby is.
Yeah, that's one of my questions for you too. Is like it does feel very. Simple's not the right word, but minimalistic is a great way to say it. The rules don't feel overdeveloped in each and every area. What were some of the design criteria when you guys sat down and first started sort of brainstorming, or when you what kind of things did the game have to achieve at excel?
Right, yeah, like as you're saying, you're going for what specific goals? Like, what were those goals? If you rendered down the game, what are the points that make this the miniatures game that you set out to design?
Well, I like to think that whenever you design a miniatures game, especially with a game like Warfare, which is coming out new and kind of trying to hit the market, there's a trinity. I'm going to make a little triangle here with my hand that will be useless to your viewers. Each side is equilateral. They're all equal. Is realism, gameplay, understandability is the gameplay, and fun. Mm-hmm. And if you've got the three of those, realism would be you have to feel like what's happening on the tabletop is something you can interpret.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When things happen in a game that you're like, that makes no sense, that just feels wrong. That's a problem. There needs the game world needs to feel real.
Right.
Now there is some responsibility on our side as players, not just as gamers, to interpret that properly. Right. When a guy misses, we don't always assume that he just missed. Maybe the armor saved him. All these things, right? When we build that narrative in our head, but the realism of the game has to make that narrative possible. If our suspension of disbelief is constantly broken by the rules of the game, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. The next one is gameplay. It needs to be easy to understand. It needs to have one of those. The mantra of every game designer is simple to learn, impossible to master, right? We want you to be able to learn the rules in 20 minutes, half an hour for a game this complex, which I think we did when we demoed it. Yeah. But then as you play, you're learning more and more tricks. And one of the things that, especially the other one on this side, by the way, is fun. It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool things need to happen. Vehicles need to light on fire. Rockets need to crack open stuff. Units got to die in the street, things like
right.
that. But with the gameplay aspect, one of the things we found is the more we built on that brilliant Andy Chambers framework, the more it kind of took a life of its own, where we didn't have to write a rule for running across the street. What are the chances that a hero can make it across the street running into this line of fire, right? The rules kind of already supported that. And with the suppression being such a simple mechanic, but much more robust than a simple binary, you're fine, you're running away. Because it scales up and all these things kind of ramp down, but in a way that isn't, here's your chart with all the things that will happen over time. It just happens on its own as you go. You're like, oh, these guys are about to run. I should do something about that. You see it coming. You're not, because of all these very, very simple systems that are very robust, the game just kind of adapts for all those things on its own. The strategies are so much more than make sure that I don't know, what's the one I'm looking for? Line of sight, not line of sight, target priority. It's so much more deep than just knowing your target priorities.
Right, and I think you definitely achieved a lot of that. It's especially interesting that there's not a lot of. I look at Dust Warfare, and I don't see a lot of rules that break other rules. It's more there's a special order for this unit that doesn't exist in other units, but it's not like, well, this unit
ignores this
part of the rule set, which is sort of more common in maybe some other miniature war games.
That's actually something I learned going through. You're always trying to learn and get better when you do design. And we brought in Alessio Cavatori as an editor, and there was a couple points, not a lot, but I learned that lesson. He said, there's a lot of places where there's no reason to break a rule. Give them a new ability. Don't present it as they can do this. Instead, just work it a different way. And we try to break rules as little as possible.
I think you see that there.
Yeah. Now, you've got a game that we love. We've been playing it for 2 weeks straight and having a blast. Actually, all weekend. Every day we've been here, we played at least once.
We're at Adepticon. We're like just playing Dust Warfare all weekend long.
It's been a great DustCon.
I could not want to hear that more. That is fantastic news.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 of the things that you put into this game specifically to serve that triangle, what do you think you like? What do you think that you and Andy Chambers? What are the 2 or 3 things that you introduce in this game that really service that triumvirate of priorities that you set out?
I think the first would be the suppression reaction system that Andy Chambers put in. That was one of the things he was very keen on, and he designed very simply, and it works great in that when a guy's running at you, you can do something about it.
Right.
Sure, you can't really react to somebody who's really far away shooting at you, not as easily. But when you know there's a guy right there with a shotgun, why are you standing still?
Right.
And while miniatures games do not, that is not the narrative they're telling. They're not supposed to be they're not real time, right? They're a turn-based game. We accept that's not. There's an unreality there, but by adding that reaction mechanic in there, it makes the game you're playing feel so much more alive, and you're playing the game the entire time. You're watching what your opponent does. You're interacting with your opponent because you two are talking about things, and that level makes the game more fun because he's no longer this guy who's on the other side of the table trying to kill you.
Right.
He's like, okay, I'm going to do a move and shoot here, and now he's going to move and shoot. He doesn't now announce his targets, right? He moves in within 12 inches of 2 of your units. Both of those units can react, and you're like, well, I don't mind if he shoots this one, so I can just run with this one. But what if he's already going to shoot that one? Maybe I can just stay here. And now there's this element of bluffing.
Right.
Yep. That's just all these little things that are added in that make the game more tactical and fun. The other thing that I think really serves that triumvirate is the battle builder. You guys have had experience with it.
I haven't. One of the things we've talked. I mean, we've reviewed a lot of miniature war games on the show, and one of my critiques of a lot of new miniature war games when they come out is they focus so heavily on the core mechanics of the game, and rightly so, and the model balance, and rightly so, that oftentimes the scenario section will get left out. It's an afterthought, or here's a couple missions you can play, or go kill people. And what's really interesting about Dust Warfare is not only is it not an afterthought, it's almost a forethought, if that makes sense. But it's right up in there as you're suggesting, saying just a really amazing system. Can you describe it for our listeners? How exactly does that work?
Well, the basic idea is that each player has 2 points to spend. They're going to dice off, and they're going to decide who's going to be placing the first point. The person who places the first point is also going to be choosing his deployment zone, because placing the first point is committing early, and that's actually not. That's something you don't want to have to do, so you get a little benefit for doing it. In our game, there's a lot of something bad happens, something good happens. They all kind of come sandwiched together. When you take a command in the command phase to do something early, you're going to not be able to react in the unit phase. That's a trade-off, right? So each player has their 2 points, and there are 3 different parts: deployment, conditions, and objective. So you're trying to push this down the columns, and each player puts points in, which moves it down. You have to spend all your points, and it always moves down towards the 3+, which is the highest it can go. If for some reason there's already 3 in there, you can't put your 4th point there, and that's it. That's as simple as it gets. I place 1, you place 1, I place 1, you place 1. We're done. But because of that, you've seen your opponent's army list, you're looking at it, you're addressing it, and you're like, okay, well, I've got a lot of long-range shooting. I need to get rid of this limited visibility, so I'll spend a point here in conditions. And then your opponent's like, well, he's got a lot of troops, and I got a lot of tanks, and I do not want to fight this break line scenario. I don't want him to rush me. I'll spend a point there. And you do that, and so at the end of the day, you never have a scenario that's just randomly generated that's bad for you, and you never have one that's really good for you. It's always like a strategic decision. you get the good with the bad, and now you have to make some complex decisions.
And you've actually taken part in designing it, so
If the scenario is really bad for you, it's your fault.
And that's what's brilliant about it. It brings something to the table that most war games don't have, which is the Sun Tzu thing. You choose your battlefield.
Yeah.
And it adds that element. And what's great, because we played it, and it was really all about, I do have that close-in assault fighter. I'm going to move you forward, and I'm get the limited visibility. It brings so much together. And in other games, when you get stuck in a night fight, you don't want to be there. You can pick that destiny now.
Well, and you do that before you place terrain, and then terrain placement is part of the strategy as well. You're literally picking your battlefield,
right? Which makes it great, and maybe that kind of segues into the ground up thought about tournament play, because it seems like this game, there aren't many manufacturers kind of do their game for fun around the beer and pretzels, and then later maybe with an afterthought adding competitive play. It seems like with Dust Warfare, competitive play is right up in the front.
I thought maybe it'd be nice if we just tried to do that backwards, right? So I made the game, or Andy Chambers and the team kind of. There was an idea that we would make it competitive, but not in that that jerk kind of way, right? We would just make it as tight a written rule set as possible. Make sure it's as balanced as possible. There's a lot of options where you can make choices. There's a lot of opportunity to make mistakes, which is when your opponent will capitalize on it, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of my opponent did this. Well, I'm going to sneak up his flank now, and you can actually do those things. You can actually slice the pie with your troops when you're coming around terrain, or position yourself in banana positions. All that actual traditional small unit tactics works, and by kind of focusing on that tournament. That kind of gameplay, that very tight, expansive gameplay, we actually found that adding in the stuff for the more casual player was even easier, because now they've got an intuitive rule set, one that they can easily grasp, they can learn slowly, they can have a lot of fun, they can relax and just play, and we can do all these crazy fun stuff that builds on this framework, this very sturdy foundation. We can do crazy stuff. And it's great. We have scenarios in the book that are just campaign scenarios that are just a blast. Andy Chambers designed those, and they are just fantastic to throw down over a pizza and some soda and just go at it.
Well, I think that and again, in the mission section really shows both those points you just highlighted. And when you get into the tournament play, again, it very clearly points out the amount of terrain on the board. Fill 1/4 of the table up with terrain, whatever that takes to fill it. That's the terrain you use, and now you deploy it. So it's very specific how much terrain to have. But then, if you want to have a more fun, relaxed thing, as you said, you got those great campaign missions, and a lot of games just simply say put some terrain on there till you feel good. But when you're trying to really get a competitive game, that's not specified. So it's really nice to see that. I think right from the beginning in your game.
Well, we also wanted to make sure that store owners and that event organizers had the easiest time possible. That's one of the most difficult things to do, and it's often not as rewarding as we expect it to be. Something always goes wrong in a tournament, and the organizer is always frantically trying to solve 20 problems at once. So the least I can do, if he's being good enough to run a Dust Warfare event, is to make it super easy for him to run. So I tried to think, can we make a miniatures game as easy to run as as easy to run as you would one of our organized play card events, right? I watched very closely when we ran Lord of the Rings get-togethers where people played our Lord of the Rings card game, or the Invasion card game, which there's some really serious AGOT. We have all these fantastic card games. I'm leaving out the Call of Cthulhu card game, obviously. I can't leave any of these out. They're so good.
Must mention them all.
I don't want any of the babies to feel that they're not being given the proper attention. But yeah, we have these fantastic living card games, and I watch these guys play, organize events and run these events, and they don't have to do all the work that I have to do when I run a miniatures event. And I thought, what if we just made it so that all the organizer has to do is put out the 6 foot by 4 foot table, fill 2 feet by 4 foot in a corner with terrain. He doesn't have to write scenarios. That's something the players handle. That's part of the challenge. They don't have to put out the terrain in an even manner. That's something the players handle. Just taking those two things off the table, and the no scenario he has to judge, that sort of thing, boom. He's now able to focus on making sure that every player has a good matchup, that the matchups are done properly, that the scorekeeping is done properly, that rules judging is done properly. And when you run a Dust Warfare event, it's my hope and my experience on the limited ones I've run, it's just there. You just do it, and at the end of the day, you're tired because it's a long day. But it's more rewarding because you can focus on making sure that everyone has a great time.
And there's a lot less for people to complain about because they've got so much in their own hands now.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, for the first time as a competitive game, puts so much of that in the hands of the player, whether it's deployment zone, it's objectives, it's the battlefield layout, it's the battlefield the battle, what are the conditions, the battle, I mean, all of that, which is normally things that if you're running, and we've all run events, and you want to make it creative, but you don't want to nerf somebody, like, oh, can't do it, and now it's all on them.
You have to have this perfect knowledge of the current metagame,
right. Exactly.
to do it at all, and especially if you're a store owner who has 1,000 other games to know.
Right, yeah.
You can't have that detailed level. We can't expect that of a store owner.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's trying to provide a community for multiple game communities.
Right.
He's trying to build a robust gaming community at his store so that everyone's got friends to play with, and we can't expect him to be a master of one miniatures game.
Yeah, and I think this game just masterfully handles that whole scenario, because part of the game is doing all of that, and that's, I mean, it's really almost a game within a game, is that battle grid that you're setting everything up at the beginning, and then I just think it's very well done.
And the more important to me, it sets the metagame.
Right.
The metagame can't swing wildly out of control because, this guy's bringing nothing but, he's got 2 Koenigs Luthers. What am I going to do? These things are really powerful. They're really hard to kill. Oh, wait, I'll just play this mission against him.
Right.
No, I'm going to win this one. All right. Yeah. So
He's
so now-
thinking, I'm not going to let him play that mission against me.
Yeah,
Gotta work it out.
and then his opponent's like, oh man, I cannot stop him from making us play that mission the way this bid point works. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't bring 2 Koenigs Luther next time. I'm going to sneak in this one. And so you've got this thing where you're like, but now he's not ready for it. 2 Koenigs Luthers again. Or maybe maybe it's like, maybe I can make that work. And so it creates this healthy metagame where everyone gets to play with all their toys, and you really get to challenge yourself when you're deciding what to bring today.
Right.
And also like the clarity again, where it very clearly says in the book, exchange your lists, everything's known, there's none of that. And I also like how flexible the system is. I can see with expansions or even really well-versed terminal organizers saying, to make it different, instead of designing new scenarios, I'm just going to change what's in that table. And I'm sure you guys have plans already for that.
Almost as like it's an evil plan.
Exactly.
Set up in advance.
So, but again, if you look on there and go, oh my God, this is a crazy condition, I can't possibly let it happen. At least you have some control. It's not like you go to a tournament where the organizers pick some really wacky mission and it's fun, except for the one army you brought today where it's useless. That's avoided, which is nice. But when you put your points there to avoid that, now you're not getting advantages elsewhere, which is really interesting.
Well, that combined with the fact that every player is going to get new units every season.
Right.
We're not.
Hey, tell us about the new release schedule. How's that going to work?
Basically every we release in seasons, and coming up we've got the Sino-Soviet Union, the Russians, right?
The Russians, they look great too, but the models are on display.
Man!
Yeah.
Every time I get new miniatures from Paulo, or even just pictures of what he's working on, I'm like a school kid. I'm like,
can you give us a tease? What's going to be the characteristics of the Russians? What's going to make them different from the 2 factions that are out now?
Well, I think the first thing is that they're the first to get helicopters. They're the first aircraft. We're going to see some serious aircraft rules, especially in warfare. And then tactics, the guys at the studio, Olivier, just has done a great job making, we get test tactics, we do a little more testing and refining and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, he hands us what is finished and what is fantastic, right? Tactics is just this great quick board game, and the guys at the studios do a fantastic job. And then we take over some of the heavy lifting for getting things out the door. But it's his ideas and it's his baby, and it's great. But with warfare, we kind of just get to see this expansion into the aircraft, which has built on that very sturdy framework. It's simple, but it's got this new little element to it where you're like, now I have to think about one new thing. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, we found that the system is kind of so fun that we can actually just do dogfight games. We were like, well, let's just not worry about the platoon structure system, and let's just each run like 3 helicopters, and let's see what happens. And it was so fun.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So the Russians will be very mobile. They'll have air cav, that kind of thing? Or?
They'll be fairly mobile.
Yeah.
The Americans or the Allies right now are the only ones that have a transport.
Right.
So they'll be getting their transports and their attack helicopters.
Great.
That sort of thing.
So once they're out, then it's going to be seasonal. What kind of things can people expect every season?
The idea is that every season we'll do a campaign book, and the campaign book will have all the rules for all the units that season. Sometimes it'll be a little bit larger when we release a new faction, like with the Russians. Sometimes it'll be a little tighter, and in that you'll get all the rules for the new units we're releasing. So if you're an Allies player, you can pick up the book, and you've got a couple new units in there.
Everybody gets love every season.
Everyone gets love every season.
Even the Russians are coming up. There's going to be some Allies, some German access.
Now, when we release a new faction, there'll probably be a little less love.
Sure, right.
But not a lot. Like there's still some, right? And of course, with those, you're also getting new rules, right? new stuff is going into campaign books of Arrowgrad. Just new rules and new toys and new things to play with. And then every season that's going to happen. We haven't announced the one after that, but we've got plans. We're working.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
No, go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned tactics several times, and I always wonder and ask designers, is it tougher to design a game for an existing universe, right? And so let me ask you this first, I guess. How tight did it have to? Were there any restrictions, or did you have to leverage anything that was in Dust Tactics? Were you given carte blanche, or was like, we can do whatever you want, but we kind of need to tie this in, or how close did you have to stay to the Dust Tactics mechanics and or the way things were there? Could you add a machine gun here and there? Did you have to stick with the same thing?
To be honest, working within an established game world is actually a lot easier than trying to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot you can do, especially when it's a world that's as fleshed out as Paulo Parente's Dust. Right? It's a very rich, vibrant world. It feels very alive. Yeah, it's this crazy sci-fi world where weird things are happening, but it feels right. Yeah. It's got just enough connection to the World War II we understand, and then that pulp fun that he's putting in there. So it feels very right. It was very easy to kind of make everything mechanically function like it felt like it should. So at the end of the day, I never needed to change out, this thing's got one extra machine gun. That was never part of the balanced need. Right. And I felt very early on, even though I don't think it was ever strictly said, that we needed to make sure that units in both tactics and warfare made sense, that they felt like they were from the same world. The fireball napalm thrower, Fireball's napalm thrower isn't suddenly going to shoot across the table in one game, right? It's a close range murder house.
So sort of the fluff established by the mechanics in Dust Tactics being that flamers are roughly this distance for it was maintained in Dust Warfare.
Yeah, there's enough miniatures out. There's a huge variety of miniatures out for the Axis and the Allies, and soon the Soviets. That it was very, very easy to be like, well, I need to make sure that these guys have a light anti-infantry guy. That's these guys. It was very easy to do. Nice. It's just a matter of making sure, and then from there it was making sure that each player felt like their army played differently. So while there's some unit kind of redundancy in that soldiers with rockets, they're kind of the same thing, and they're kind of mirrored a little bit. But look, this one's got underbarrel grenade launchers, and this one's got the Panzerfaust. Those are very different, and that suddenly makes the units very different. And when the core unit is that different, the army suddenly plays different. Right. And now it's all about these. The Germans make very good use of suppressive fire with the zombies coming in to clean up after suppression, and the Allies are really, really good at setting up ambushes and swinging around. And all of that is just these subtle tweaks to the units that blow up when you get them into Andy's system. You put that in the warfare system, and suddenly they just start functioning totally different, even though they're barely different on paper. Totally different unit, and it synergies with the army completely differently.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, how has it been doing this weekend? This is the big unveiling, right? And how did it do?
Let me tell you, it is nerve-wracking. You work on a game like this for nearly a year. You're excited about it. You think it's the best thing ever. You put it out there. You're like, man, I can't wait for people to play it. And then you got to wait a little bit while it's on the boat, while it's getting to places. And you're like, what if I'm wrong? What if people don't like it? What if all of this, and it's there's a lot of miniatures game out there that don't get traction. There's a lot of really good stuff out there. And what if I'm just, man, I'm nervous. And then you get a reaction like I got this weekend, and you're just like, it's such a relief, and you're just so excited walking through and seeing you guys just sitting there playing Dust. And I'm like, these guys are playing the game and they're loving it.
It's awesome.
Success. You're nervous, but you're just like, but then it gets out there and it's just, it's the greatest thing ever. It's just been so rewarding to find out that people really do enjoy it, and that I've managed to be part of a team that gets a game like this out there. And I can't wait to see what the next couple of years have in store. The next 10 years, who knows, right?
And you've pretty much been doing demos for the last 3 days nonstop, right?
Yes. We sold out very quickly. We brought a bunch of them, and we thought we had more than we needed, and we were wrong. Everyone who demoed bought one. Everyone was really excited about it. The word spread very quickly, and I only had enough to really demo for 2 people, because we thought, people are playing their tournaments, they're having fun. I might even have to work to get 2 people at my table each, but we'll get the word out. Day one, my demo table was full the entire time. I was just working with people because
With 2 or 3 deep. I mean,
it's
people watching and
it's
waiting for their turn.
Right.
Yeah,
it's people started to crowd. People, the word spread, and then by Saturday, I don't think I did a demo where there weren't 8 people watching. Like, I had this tiny 4x4 table that I'm just kind of showing some of the mechanics on, and people are just like, oh, "That's the greatest thing ever! I'm gonna go buy that right now. Oh, look at that walker!" And I'm like, "Well, they look at they see some of the premium edition walkers, and they're like, oh man, who painted that?" And I'm like, "Those are the premium editions. The miniatures come assembled and primed. You can pull them out of the box and play, pull them out of the box and paint. But if you want, you can get these premium editions." And they're like, "What?" And then seeing someone from Minnesota who goes to one of the local game stores in my town painted up a walker, one of the walkers, just a gorgeous conversion.
Oh, Thumper?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's one of the case in Crystal Brush. That was awesome.
Apparently,
That was awesome.
I believe, I don't want to get quoted on this because I'm wrong, I think he won Best Sci-Fi Miniature.
I think he did.
Oh,
I saw, and just walking through and seeing someone that had
was
done
awesome.
It
done
was an amazing.
The nose art. They had nose art in this thing that was Thumper from Bambi on the nose art of the tank, and it was perfectly drawn. It was awesome.
I was looking at it, I'm like, oh my, how did he do that?
Yeah.
And then
did he miniaturize himself?
I know, and the tank cap was out, and they had the first airborne patch on her shoulder, and you could see it perfectly.
It was
amazing.
It was amazing miniature,
Amazing,
and it was
yeah.
seeing one of Paula's minis brought up to that detail. I was like, this is what you can do with the minis.
And we got to caution our listeners too, because when you say it's primed and pre-assembled, and there's even decals on them when you take one of the box. And a lot of us are conditioned to think, oh, well, pre-assembled, pre-primed, that means it's just a molding. You take these things out, and these are like premium World War II model kits with parts that are actually not just glued, actually clipped in, they move. Like some of the armor plates pivot. Some of the light walkers can actually, like the US one, the Honey can change its angles. Mm-hmm. Things rotate, searchlights going out. They're really beautiful models that you can put a lot of love and care into. Yeah. Or if you're a lazy painter like me, you can dry brush them real quick, add a couple of colors. They look great on the table.
And they're not just primed; they're base coated. I mean, the priming is actually the base coat of the model.
Right? Yeah.
So even if you're not quite as lazy as Russ, and you want to do a little more than dry brushing, you're still going to get an amazing response from the model with a minimum of work because the majority of the color's already there. I mean, it's a great marketing. That how's marketing happy with you this weekend?
Well, I snore and we have to share a hotel room, so not really. I feel bad for those gentlemen. They brought earplugs, and that's a good thing. Yeah. No, it's.
We just watched the stock go down every day. It was just there would be another unit that was sold out and sold. It was like Swiss cheesed by the end.
We didn't know. So we've got the whole table set up, and we're doing our thing, and then at some point today, we ran out of walkers yesterday, and we were like, dang it. At some point today, someone was just getting something out from underneath, and they bump into a box, and I'm like, we have a whole nother box of walkers. We're like, oh man, I feel terrible. But, let's price them and put them up on the shelves. Let's see if gone. Just boom, gone.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you can tell it was doing well. In fact, Craig and I were eyeing it on Friday, and one of the things about the game, I think, again, that helps its launch so much is, a lot of times a new game will launch, you'll get the book, and there's full information on the factions. There are lots of flexibility, and we should also stress that even though there's only 2 factions, there's so much platoon flexibility in this game that you could build a platoon of just guerrillas, as or long range troopers. So you have a lot of options, and yet because Dust Tactics has been around so long, I think pretty much every unit in the book is already available in purchase, right?
Everything that's out up until the release of the book is in this book,
right.
And then every season from here on out,
that's full feature. There's plenty in there. I mean, there's plenty to work with.
Well, it's a tight 144 pages, full colored. The graphic design guys.
The graphic design is awesome. Yeah.
Oh man, they showed that to me, and when it was I was just like, No, that was.
So one of the questions we get asked, one question we've been asked is, because people seeing us playing it, and in Dust Tactics, every vehicle or unit comes with a card, right? And they're beautiful cards, and they're high color. They have stat lines on them, but unfortunately, for reasons you mentioned earlier, the stats aren't the same in most cases to Warfare. We scribbled on them, made some changes, but what are the plans to help support that issue going forward?
One of the things we're very keen on is to make sure that players have quick references they need. So we're discussing and looking at a bunch of different solutions. I've got like 3 different ways to do it in my head.
Okay.
So we're just going to see what's easiest for the customers, what's something we can support long term. That's critical. It can't be something we just do and then don't keep going with. Right. So we need to find. It's certainly one of our top priorities, and I will be tomorrow morning when I get to back home or tomorrow afternoon when I get back home, it's one of the things we're going to be looking to make sure we can do. And there's a couple of quick ideas that I don't think it'll be pretty simple. But because the games are different, they do need different statistics.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
You have any other questions, Craig?
Well, I'm just. Is there? Russ has a theory, and I share it to a certain extent. And not to put you in a difficult position, so
put him there, baby. Put him in the corner.
So it's totally valid to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question, and I know we're not going to get any details.
Oh,
but
this is going to go bad.
But boxers or briefs? No. Russ has a theory that to be really successful, a miniatures game has to have 4 factions to allow for variety of play style and style in the miniatures and stuff like that. You've got 2, and as Russ said, there's a lot of variety within those 2. So I think you've already addressed that to a certain extent.
And we have announced a third. It's on the way.
The third is very, very quickly right around the corner.
Imminent is the word I'm using.
Imminent sounds good. Are there any plans for that elusive 4th faction?
Well, the announcements have not come yet, so I'm not at liberty to say. But I can say that there is an eagerness at our company to make sure this game is supported in the way that it needs to be supported to go forward as a serious contender in the miniatures game arena. We want people to see this game and go, oh yeah, Dust. I like Dust. Let's play some Dust.
Cool. Okay.
And so to do that, there's quite a bit that needs to be done. We think we've got a great game now, but it doesn't stay a great game unless we support it actively and with the full force of our company, and that is something we plan to do.
Great.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
And that sounds like, maybe
So
6.
It's not a yes.
Right.
We haven't announced anything.
I think I know the answer to this just by your answer there, but I just want to kind of reinforce it for our listeners, and that is that, sometimes you see a game like this come out from a company that does many different kinds of games, and they're like, oh, that's just their attempt to show off miniature gaming. We know the rules are solid, obviously, and Fantasy was really behind this project. But, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, Fantasy Flight wouldn't have been considered an RPG powerhouse, but in the past 6 or 7 years, you've really become known as you won a lot of awards with the 40Ks line, the fantasy line. Would you say Fantasy Flight's trying to do the same thing now with miniature games and say, we can make really flagship miniature games? That's sort of where you're going?
I think the bigger issue is we've got the people who can do it, and they want to do it, and because we're passionate about games, because we're passionate about all these different games, to not let the employees explore that passion and make fantastic games for the fans is really the issue. Is we can't not do that. Right. When you've got games of the company, players of the company who just love miniatures games and can make a fantastic miniatures game, it would almost be a disservice to both the employee and the customer to not just make a fantastic miniatures game. That's really what it is. It's yes, we want to branch out. We want to do all these things, but that's because we play these games and we love them, and Anton likes miniatures games. He's a marketing guy who's with us. We had Tim Flanders here, who's in charge of Deathwatch now, or on the part of the role-playing team. Right. Most recently working on Deathwatch, and it's so important that these guys, when we're passionate about stuff, we can make fantastic games. Yeah. And yes, we want to get into that miniatures. We want to make a cool miniatures game, but it's more because we want to make a cool miniatures game than we want to kind of get into this new arena.
Not really, or at least counting coup. You have a legitimate goal on your own.
At least that's my goal. I can't speak for everyone, but that's how I feel about it, and that's how it feels when my superiors come to me and talk to me about what we're working on. That's the feeling I get.
Awesome.
Great.
I think mission accomplished.
I would say so.
I am so excited. I can't wait to see what the future has.
Neither can we.
We can't either. Well, Mac, thank you so much for taking time out of Adepticon to talk with us. We really appreciate it. And thanks so much for the demo as well. It's always great to play a game with the designer and kind of help you fine-tune the rules you think you know.
We were doing a few things wrong.
I can't wait to be playing this game with someone who doesn't know me, and they start arguing the rules like, well, I don't think that's what the designers intended. Oh, I assure you it is.
Maybe not then, but now it is.
If only it can get that, that popular. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. You want to keep your picture off everything then. So you can infiltrate events
I guess
someday.
I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks again, Mac. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much.